Hey guys, Hailey Lain aka Key Black here, and welcome back to another episode of Off the Cuff. Today I want to talk about RoboCop. Given some of the recent off-the-cuff topics where I've talked about having crushes on main characters that are kind of overpowered, and also the fact that I mentioned Inspector Gadget recently, it's probably unsurprising that I want to talk about RoboCop. It is actually my favorite movie of all time. I don't think it's the best movie of all time, but it's my favorite. I was actually introduced to it along with a lot of other classic, cinema by Jess back in, I was still living in Australia, and I think I had just come off of watching Terminator and Terminator 2 with her. I'd also just come off of watching a bunch of Cops episodes. I really like the kind of cop drama, buddy cop style of genre, and I had also really enjoyed the sci-fi flicks with like the robotic characters, so really liked Blade Runner, really liked Terminator. I was bound to like RoboCop. The weekend I first saw it, I first watched it with Jess, and then 2 other times I pulled 2 other friends in to watch it with me. I wasn't getting tired of it anytime soon. When I first watched it, I was immediately struck by one element of the storytelling that I would have taken for granted had it not been for Jess pointing it out with Frozen, of all movies. Or rather, how Frozen fails to do this. And that is not just the sincerity of the storytelling, but the fact that what it tells you is actually what it is. If the movie tells you the hero's the hero, by God, it's the hero, and the villain is the villain. There's none of that subversion of expectations or surprise, it's not actually what we told you it was in the beginning of the show. It's like, no, here's the premise, you kind of know where it's going, and we're gonna have a lot of fun getting there. It's also nice to just have a main character who wants to do the right thing. And then you pit that against not only the bad guys who are the obvious bad guys, but also the kind of slime that's existing underneath the surface in maybe the main character's own organization. That's a very satisfying plot. And as Jess has been introducing me to all these movies that I really missed out on growing up, I'm realizing that it's a style of storytelling that I've come to really miss in modern movies. So in RoboCop, the good guys are the good guys, the bad guys are the bad guys. It's pretty straightforward, but all of them are written to be extremely human. Going into watching RoboCop, I wasn't really sure what to expect. I kind of thought it was going to be a parody movie. It's not. It's dead serious. I actually didn't even realize that it was R-rated when it was released in 1987. Guess it kind of goes to show how much the standards for ratings have changed. But the story is incredibly sincere, the characters are really believable, the acting's fantastic. And one of my favorite elements of the movie is just how much you get out of the characters from their little interactions with each other, the little tiny things that you kind of would take for granted, or if you're not really looking for and you'd miss it. I just rewatched it again the other day, and I was still catching things that the actors had done to portray their characters and to interact with one another that I hadn't caught on previous watch-throughs. Like, take for instance Murphy's interactions with Lewis. Like, right away you get the sense that, Murphy might be a little bit naive, but he's a damn good cop. He's very competent, and he has a strong sense of duty and also kind of a playful, mischievous side to him. And you get all of that out of the first scene you see him in, where he's told to suit up, and then the gun twirling that he does with Officer Lewis. And then conversely, you get Officer Lewis, who is tough as nails, takes no shit from anybody, commands a pretty high level of respect, but she's also incredibly perceptive, incredibly sensitive and empathetic. And yeah, you can tell she gets a little bit annoyed when Murphy takes the driver's seat before she can get to it, but then she also takes the moment to notice his gun twirling. So they make a really good team, but they of course also share some flaws in their teamwork. Like, the van chase is fantastic. It's like they've been working together for years, but then they go into the mill and they go in without backup. On the one hand, understandable, backup's not coming for a while. On the other hand, they're crazy outnumbered, and this guy, they know they're on the tail of like the most wanted man in Detroit. So when things inevitably go really south, it's really believable that Lewis would blame herself for what happened. And with all that groundwork laid, now it's totally believable that later on, she's the one who's able to start bringing Murphy's personality back. And you don't need a character telling you in as many words that's what happened. All you need is Murphy taking those 2 subtle steps back. And then immediately after, as he's passing her by, he says, "Excuse me, somewhere there's a crime being committed." A robot wouldn't need to give an excuse for why he's leaving an awkward social situation. That's a human thing to do. I was totally rooting for them to get together, but doesn't really need to be confirmed in canon. Now, as for Murphy himself, yes, I find Murphy extremely attractive. I mean, you can't blame me. In the first scene we see him, he's already established as like the most likable guy on the planet, and then he becomes this crazy, overpowered super cop, still maintains his sense of loyalty, duty, and moral right and wrong, and then later starts to regain some of his personality and sense of humor. He's an A+ guy. And I also love the fact that you can see exactly how he's working through the realism realization of what's happened to him and the loss of who he was. And I'm just amazed by how effectively they conveyed that. They don't need somebody to explain it to you. You see the empty house, you see the evidence of burned family photographs, clearly the wife left in what might have been a fit of anguish. You see him punch through the TV screen and the realization of what he's lost. And then later you get the one line, "I can feel them, but I can't remember them." It's like, yes, that tells you exactly what you need to know, no further. And it's all that stuff that makes the final line of the movie so delicious. But I love all the characters. It's not just the two main ones. I love all the OCP guys. I love the villains. I especially like the old man, the head of OCP. I feel like he's a type of character who's underutilized and not even used at all in most modern stories. They kind of ruined his character in RoboCop 2. They gave him Jones's personality and made him into the new villain. But in the original RoboCop 1, the old man at the head of the company is a really swell guy. Yeah, he's got some bad nicks working under him, but he's a really, honest and forthright person. He genuinely wants to do the right thing for the city. I fully believe him when he says he wants to give something back. And that is, of course, underscored by his outrage at Jones getting a guy killed and then calling it a glitch. It's a whole plot point. It's why Jones goes, "Who cares if it works?" And Bob answers with, "The old man thought it was pretty important." Like, from all the evidence in the first movie, the old man's a really cool guy. And the story is really fair to how it treats all the various characters in it, from the good guys all the way to the bad guys. They're all crazy believable, and I love how weird a choice of appearance Clarence is for a villain, like a gang mob boss. He kind of looks like an IT guy, but he's the one who goes, "Can ya fly, Bobby?" And it's somehow really believable. The actor sells it, so I just love it. I did watch RoboCop 2 out of curiosity earlier this week. It was an absolute travesty, and I don't want to derail this video too much, but I might do a second one talking about what I would have personally wanted out of a sequel, rather than just sitting there and ragging on RoboCop 2, because there's a lot to rag on. What I would personally recommend is, if you guys have not seen RoboCop, the original, definitely watch it. Definitely put it on your to-watch list. It's a fantastically sincere movie. It's got all that lovely 80s glurge, but it's actually a good story. And just stop there. Don't watch the spin-offs or the sequels. They're not good. I think that'll pretty much cover it for today's topic. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and I will see you in the next one. As always, please leave your comments in the comments section, and thanks again.